Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon from this time zone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening, whatever the time zone you're in. I'm delighted to have you here with me on this year's session of the World Food Day Forum. I have really exciting and amazing people with me here who are going to be talking about financing agri-food systems for good food outcomes. My name is Damian Udo and I lead the team here at QuickLeap. QuickLeap is a food and finance agri-tech startup, agricultural financial technology startup, whose focus is to provide good food for everyone, everywhere, every time. We do this in collaboration with food system actors, farmers, traders, food processors, everyone you can think about within the food value chain. And our work actively is to be an orchestrator of good food outcomes. So essentially, we want to make sure that individuals, families, and businesses have all the good food they need to live. Individuals and families have all the good food they need to live healthy and happy lives from infancy to adulthood. And of course, food businesses have all the food raw materials they need to create great food that match our definition of good food, which is food that is nutritious, affordable, and accessible. I'm going to bring on stage panelists today. We have just 1 hour. This World Food Day Forum this year is going to be just for just 1 hour. We're going to have really really amazing and bright minds from practitioners within the agri-food system, within our agri-food systems rather, to come you know, contribute to this conversation. All right. So I'm going to bring the guys on stage now. I will deliver my introductory remarks and then we'll start out the conversation. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Sit tight and have an amazing, amazing, amazing time. All right, guys. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon. Hi, Dara. Dara is in a different time zone. Lucy is 1 hour ahead of us, or is it 2 hours now? It's 1 hour. I think it's still 1 hour. So thank you very much. Good to have you all. Thank you for the time. I know we're supposed to still have. Okay, we have Daniel of Orisha stage here with us. Hi, Daniel. Good day. Good to have you. And we're still waiting to have Sandra come on board. Sandra, if you can hear us, I don't know if you can hear us, but then it's showing us that your device is not connected on studio here. But it's such a joy to have everybody um, on stage and to have us as a part of the conversation on World Food Day for financing agri-food systems. I have a bit of an introduction just to the conversation, and I would imagine that each and every one of us here are, practitioners, which is what I love about panel today. We have everybody. We have a panel, of people from really, really vast, would I say, backgrounds and experiences across our agri-food systems. I know that we have everything from finance to education to production, primary production, and I'm just delighted to have us all come together. Thank you so much for the time you're giving to this, and I look forward to a rich and impactful panel session filled with solutions and answers for our agri-food systems, right? So just a brief introduction to the conversation before we start out the conversation. We're going to have each and every one of you introduce yourselves and then just so that the audience gets to meet you, and then we would start out the conversation. So a bit of an introduction, right? In times where we need to have more affordable food and our food systems, particularly Africa's food systems, require tailored financing. Access to affordable and accessible finance is no longer a good to have, it's a must have for our food systems. The recent reduction in the monetary policy rate in Nigeria by 50 basis points to 27% is a great start for our agri-food systems as it allows us have cheaper access to finance. Um, However, it's not enough to facilitate the kind of growth that we need to see in capturing, producing, storing, processing, distributing, and delivering good food for everyone, everywhere, every time. The Nigerian Bureau of Statistics Q2 Quarter 2 report for 2025 shows steady growth in agriculture of about 2.82%, and agriculture now contributes about 26.18% of our overall GDP. That's admirable, but we need to have better financing to help provide accessible and affordable capital to our agri-food systems so that we can consolidate on this growth and actually accelerate it. We actually need more food. The focus of our conversation today is to find innovative ways to raise, allocate, and deploy capital to our agri-food systems and its actors. On the panel, we have allocators of capital, seasoned agri-food entrepreneurs who have walked through the need for accessible and affordable capital in their different businesses. I'd love to welcome you to the World Food Day Forum for 2025. The World Food Day Forum is an conver- convergence of bright and rising minds in our food space, daily working to build out solutions across our food systems, everything from food capturing to food production, storage, and more to ensure good food outcomes for individuals, families, and businesses. Like I said earlier on, World Food Day Forum is curated by Quicklip, a food and finance business whose mission is to provide good food for everyone, everywhere, every time. And on the first panel today, we have Jerry Toby of Jet Farms and Demore Foods and Spices and Foods. We have Choma Lucy Anyabolu of Agrodemi, and we have Dara Adekunle of, well, Dara Adekunle has her hands in a couple of pies, right? Everything from international agribusiness finance to, development to, and Dara has done so really amazing work across the space, everything from the initial work in farm ties. And I think everything is coming back to farm ties now as far as finance and agri-food systems is concerned. And of course, my friend and my brother, um, Chukuma Daniel of Orisha Farms is also here with us. I think Jerry Toby dropped off. He's going to be coming back, and we should be expecting Sandra Lucy. We also love to apologize. We Femi Adekoya of the Flying Farmer gave us like a last minute. He had a last minute clash in booking, right? So he couldn't make it with us. He couldn't make it here with us, but we're gonna have an amazing conversation around finance and agri-food systems, right? So I'd like to just have each and every one of our panelists introduce themselves and the work that they do, so the audience has a feel for um, what it is that you guys do before we start out in the conversation around finance and agri-food systems. Choma, I'd love to have you start out first. Choma of
Oh,
Agrodemi, thank you. Choma, hi.
thank you very much. Good day, everyone. My name is Choma. I'm the founder of Agrodemi. So at Agrodemi, we are redefining agribusiness education in Africa by merging free digital learning, community-based physical training, and digital agro-digital empowerment, right, into one system. What we do is make agribusiness education open to everyone. So we have a free school, we have a physical training through matching services where we match you to real agribusiness owners. But the core of what we do is raising digital agro officers for the agricultural sector. So we do that by training people on how to integrate digital technology to any agribusiness. So that's pretty it about me. Thank you.
All right, awesome, Choma. Thank you very much. Okay, hi, Dara.
Oh,
Dara, do you want to give us a brief intro?
sure.
Hi.
It's good to have you here. My name is Dara Adekunle, and I'm the founder of Farm Ties Capital. We're basically, working to support agri-SMEs in Africa who are processing and adding value to food products and exporting to the global markets. And so we do this by, supporting them with access to finance as well as access to markets and other auxiliary supports that they require to ensure that they operate sustainable businesses. And good to be here. And thanks, Damian, for organizing this.
Thank you very much, Dara. Excited to have you on board. we're going to be having a lot of exciting conversations around farm ties and the work it's doing. Hi, Daniel. Good evening. Good afternoon, rather. It's good to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Just a brief introduction, what you do, the amazing work you guys do at Orishi Farms, just so the audience gets to meet you. Thank you.
Hi, Damien, and distinguished panelists. It's a pleasure, it's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Daniel. I am the head farmer of Orisha Farms, Nigeria. I say head because we are not just one farmers, we are a cluster of farmers and youth farmers. We believe that youth are the next step into fully harnessing the potential that Nigeria has in its agriculture space. We do that with the aquaculture industry, particularly with cage culture system, which is a system that over the past few years we have supported and promoted its integration in Nigeria for large-scale system of farming, fish farming. And I believe as we proceed in this call, maybe I will talk more about it and how profitable farming model can get high sales. Thank you very much.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much, Chukuma. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you and appreciate you being here. So I'm going to just
And,
start out our panel session, right? I want us to think about it this way. Our world's agri-food systems are currently under growing pressure. Everything from broken systems within those food systems to rising conversations around climate change, conflict, economic instability around the world, and of course, rising inequalities and inequities within our food systems. At the heart of our food system still lies, dispute with financing. And I want us to think about financing as provision or access to everything from capital of all kinds, everything that enables food capturing, food production, food storage, food processing, food distribution and delivery to individuals, families, and businesses, locally and of course globally. Right. And so within each and every one of our businesses, each and every one of us here have had to interface with the need for that enabler, which is capital in any of its forms, whether that's financing or access to knowledge or know-how or opportunities or markets. All right. And so I want us to kind of like start out a conversation around what we believe like affordable and accessible financing should be like for our food system actors. So we have like I said in my introduction, we have that the recent reduction in MPR to by 50 basis points to 27%. That doesn't exactly, I mean, think about a food business right now taking money at 27% from the bank. It's not exactly super exciting news, but it's better than where it used to be. And that's one channel of finance, right? One of the things we're going to be doing in the conversation is exploring different channels of financing and the different models that has been deployed, right? I love that we have Choma from the educational, and academia point of view, which is where what Agrodemy does. We have, Dara, who's practically in, cutting the bread and butter there every day in terms of like creating these finance products and of course raising the capital and deploying capital to different businesses around the world, and of course Daniel, who's every day deploying capital to grow great food, for people, individuals, families, and businesses around the world. All right, so the first thing is, the first question I want to throw to our panel, and I'm going to, have this first, for Chioma from the educational point of view, which is kind of like what are the different finance models we've seen play out in our agri-foods, systems. We could touch on everything from crowdfunding to, of course, the banks. We talked about the MPR and the reduction in the MPR by 50 basis points to 27%. And the growth that has created in our economy, right? I mean, we're saying that now we can see that agriculture contributes about 26.18% to Nigeria's economy. Now, we're talking Africa's food systems, we're talking global food systems, but then we have to start out somewhere, right? So we're saying in Nigeria, 26.18%, right? Start 2.82% growth over Q2, right? What are the different financing models we can find within or that we have within our food systems? You have TradFi, you have centralized finance, traditional finance, centralized finance, decentralized finance. You have models around crowdfunding. I mean, which are the models you found from your own point of view that have been the most effective within our food systems? So two questions in one: what systems do we have, and then what are the ones you found to be most effective? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So there are a couple of financing that I've seen that has worked in Africa, right? The first one is what similar like what we all know, which is a traditional commercial bank, bank
Right.
loaning system. So this is where bank extend credits to farmers, and mostly agribusiness cooperative, because these
Mm-hmm.
days we have less of farmers and more of cooperative who get access these bank loans, right? But when you begin to think about it, those kind of financing come with high interest, right? Even like with the given higher risk in the agricultural sector, then they also have to now deal with like high interest. Then we now have like the value chain financing. So these are like financings that are very specific to supplies, to processing in the agricultural space. So example, maybe people getting financing to go into contract farming for a particular processing company. So for example, someone is into processing of fruits. The person can decide to finance an outgrower to grow all of the fruits that they will buy off. That kind of financing exists. So you're being financed, but the financing is such that we're buying off everything at the end of the day.
Right.
People tend to say that this is a good kind of financing, but the truth is we don't have that kind of financing very big in the African market. And that's because a lot of people who are in the processing space usually would rather finance themselves to produce rather than extend it to someone else to the outgrowth. They feel like getting the money is the hard part. So if they get the money, they trust themselves better. Then we have the asset based lending, which is usually tied to physical assets, the tractors, the equipment for processing, machineries, and all of that. But the
Right.
truth of this model is that it also goes to big scale farmers. So the smallholder farmer usually cut out of the system. A youth is cut out of the system. You have to be a big scale farmer doing a lot of numbers to be able to access this kind of financing. And then we now have like the blended financing, which is when you come to think about credit risk sharing and first loss funds. But this is also very tied. All of these kind of funds are usually tied to big scale farmers. When we now want to talk about like small scale farmers, small scale processors, and small scale players in the sector, the most available finance that they have is either finance from savings from their salaries, right? So this is where they
Right.
have to get to work, save money from this other job and use it to start their business. And the second form of funding is grant funding, where they now get to apply for grants through donor organization and then specify what they need this grant for. So this grant could either be capacity building grant, it could be asset grant, it could be input grant, right? It could even be access to market grant and certification grants, maybe to certify their products. So these are like the kind of financing that has worked, right? Here in
Yeah.
Africa. But if you begin to think about the size of our market, the kind of the player, the larger proportion of the players we have in the food system, especially in Africa and here in Nigeria, you begin to see that the one that has worked most is the grant system, because a lot of young people are the one trying to go into the agricultural space. So they have most times have to do a long grants, which seem like their best form of patient capital. The second form of grant, the funding we have then seen that has worked, is the part where people get to go and work, make their money, and then use this money they have made in form of salaries to come into this business. And the third part that we have seen that has worked is money from I like to call them friends and family, right? So they invest in you because of your level of commitment to your craft. Oh, they see that you're very passionate, and this money comes in. These are the three major fundings that has come. If you look at very big agri business and ask them how they have started business, it's either they had to save up, they've either had to look for grants, or they've either had to like look for family and friends. Very rare people who have experience, and I like to say experience either working in the financial industry or have co-founders who work in the financial industry, are the people who are usually successful starting their agri business with debt funding. debt and
Right.
VC funding. So I wouldn't exactly say successful because it's streamlined. You have to be very informed and have played in the space in the past to be able to access that kind of funding. But funding that is open for everybody, get a job and earn salary and save, get grants and grow your business from it, or get your family and friends to trust and believe in your future. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Shoma. That was elaborate, right? And I absolutely love it, right? I'm going to anchor the conversation to more before I come back to Choma and before I come back to Dara and Daniel on that bit, right? I'm going to take a bit of a pivot to just do a bit of a definition, right? So this is for the panel, and I think I would start out with Dara on this one. So how would you define good food outcomes in the context of agricultural systems financing, right? To think about it in terms of nutrition, sustainability, and equity. Like, how would you define good food outcomes from the point of view of an allocator and of finance? Yeah.
Question. And I think for me, I'll define it as sustainable, impactful, and affordable, and
Yes,
and not
I want us.
just
Sorry to cut you. I want us to hop in on the affordable, like the affordability of finance. We're elaborating on that.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I will.
yeah,
I will.
yeah.
And I feel it comes down to understanding, the value chain. Especially in agriculture, it starts from the farm, but not just it doesn't stop at the farm. It trickles down to when you eat it and how it affects our lifestyle. So whenever you look at
Exactly.
agriculture, I like to look at it holistically because when you look at it from that angle, you can see how financing works in each of the very different segments of the value chain. And that's because they also require different types of financing. Because a restaurant owner who is cooking will require a different type of financing than a smallholder farmer who is going to the farm. But in all of this, they will be categorized as maybe SMEs fueling the economy, and they require financing that are tailored to their unique, situations and in each segment of the value chain in which they are operating in. And so, what I affordable for me is, scaling what friends and family do with businesses. I feel that can be scaled in an institutional capacity. And a reason why, and I'm taking that word from Lucy, because the reason why maybe a friend and family would start up an enterprise, and I've seen it work, and the enterprise grows into a multi-billion-dollar company, is because of the kind of financing that they got from the friend and family. It's like, I want you to
Yeah,
succeed kind of financing. And I think
exactly.
if we can integrate this approach, even with financial institutions and everyone allocating capital, we will be more, we'll be more holistic about the way we deploy capital. We won't just be, deploying because this is how they do it in the US. This is how they do it. This is how it works everywhere for the maybe manufacturing industry or oil and gas. So we should just copy and paste it to agriculture. So I feel that's what a lot of like maybe agro desk in everywhere in the world, like the agro desk of banks, agro desk of financial institutions, even development financial institutions, that knowledge gap to even understand how the value chain works. And I think that's the solution to deploying tailored financing to each of the segments of the value chain. And that's the way we can make it affordable, because when you see a business and you are giving them loans for something they cannot pay back, why are you giving them the loans? Can you find out other ways you can finance them rather than giving them capital that would send them out of business? I think that's the approach to look at it, and I think that's the way we can make alternative financing available for businesses in this sector. It is working. I've seen it work, and I'm an advocate for it.
Awesome, amazing. Thank you, Dara. Right. So I'm gonna hop on something that you said while I now move on to Daniel, especially because he's coming from that end of person who's actually deploying capital to real-time projects within his own cluster in terms of what they do. And I think Daniel's going to speak more to what they do, right? And so you hopped on something, you didn't use these exact words, but you actually hopped on it. So it's more around native solutions to native challenges, right? So native precisely tailored financial solutions, right? And of course, as a fund, you would have to think about that from when you're raising this capital, like the kind of capital you're raising, do
Okay.
you deliver on the objective. This is kind of like where I want to kind of like bring it down to. So Daniel, in your experience raising capital and deploying capital, right? Like what are the challenges you found in terms of like the mismatch? Remember, we're talking about this preliminary bits with just what good food outcomes should look like in financing. And remember again, the kinds of finances that we get to to deploy within our food systems also determine the prices of food on this other end, because the price of food is not arbitrary, right? If it's food that is captured, there are all the different constituents that goes into what the final price of food that gets to the market is, right? All the different individual parts. So within your experience, what would you first advocate for should be native solutions to native challenges with financing agri-food systems, and then maybe just narrow that down to your experience with doing oyster farms and growing great fishes over the years.
Thank you, Damien.
Yeah, I think you're muted, sir.
Um, yes, yes.
Okay, awesome.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, Thank you, Damien. I would just want to just pick on something that Dara said. Um, I believe that when we are um, giving out financial solutions with the hope of improving our school systems, we should also not do copy and paste. That's what I call it. What works in Finland would not be what works in Nigeria. What works in the UK will not be
Right.
what works in the Netherlands, and so on. So we need to also look at the local context, understanding how these things play out, understanding also how it play out in the market space. For instance, at Orisha Farms, we've been able to secure certain kind of financing that has improved our production. One of them is grant system. We've been successful in getting one or two grants from IFAD or WorldFish, and that has really helped us in terms of visibility, productivity, and even in the scale of what we do. Um, but we should think if the Nigerian bank, normal deposit bank, will be able to give us that kind of financing and understanding that context and how it plays out. I have somebody that will come to me and said, we want to give you an overdraft facility. It's going to be 36%. Hope you can pay back in the next 1 month or 2 months. But I'm telling him that my gestation period for a typical tilapia to grow is 5 months. And even at that, the ROI is not even up to 18%. So we dwell on scale. And I'm just talking from a business perspective. But a banker or a financial just wants to give you money and see their interest return in so time. And this cost across various aspects and various chains is that those in the position to handle this financing need to also critically understand the sectors. It is not what applies to the agriculture sector that will be what applies to the poultry sector. There needs to be an understanding of the sectors,
Mm,
understanding of the players involved. You might give a processor a 36% interest rate, and they know they're making 45% profit. They're not too bothered. But a producer that draws on scale and his ROI is 15%, an interest rate of 26% is basically killing his business. So he's looking at another type of financing, whether equity or other types of financing that are available. So my push is that those in access to finance, or those that make these decisions that make smallholder farmers receive this financing, should also understand the context of where each finance is going, each player receiving each finance. Do they really need this? A person receiving a loan grant, does he really need a loan or a grant? Or does he really need a grant
mm,
or an equity investment? So really understanding these things will help us really understand what kind of financing is needed per agricultural value chain. And as well, this will ultimately lead to increased productivity. Because we all know that the more capital is injected into something, it automatically leads to improved production. So I'll stop here and then maybe allow my colleagues to also chime in as well. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Daniel. Right. So again, back from all the way from Chama to Dara to Daniel, same team, right? Native solutions to native challenges. So it's almost like building out very, very intentionally the kinds, very specific kinds of financial solutions we need. And Dara, you harped on something earlier on, which was the fact that it actually depends on the value chain and it depends on the particular vertical that you're thinking about and looking at. And so a food service business, like you mentioned earlier on, will have a different financial need and a different kind of product, right, than an aggregator would need, who has a supply, either invoice discounting as opposed to, say, you're providing more patient capital. Something I want to touch on before we even go to the next thing I want us to talk about, and I think I'm going to blend it in, all right? I'm going to bring it in. We now have Emeka Christian, who's the founder of Kwayima, and I'm going to bring him on stage for the next set of questions. Um, Good afternoon. Can you hear us?
Yes, I
Hi.
can hear you loud and clear. Thank you for having me, Mr. Damian.
Thank you very much. You're welcome to the conversation. I'm just going to blend you in and then we'll continue the conversation, right? And so, yeah, that bit with intentionally thinking about different kinds of financial products that are needed for the different value chains, right? And of course, the cost of that finance, like Daniel spoke from somebody who's practicing's point of view, you have to be very specific about what kinds of finances you need at different stages, right?
Right.
Both Choma and Lucy, I didn't say Choma and Lucy, both Choma and Dara kind of alluded to the fact that you need like there were people who at the beginning, it's because they had, that support from family and friends that they were able to have, to grow the business, because that was patient capital. That was not capital that you needed to make X1, X2 on in, any specific given period of time. You could do the fundamental things, right? This is not just, they'll tell you, this money cannot fund capital expenditure. It can only fund, your recurrent expenses. You had the kinds of funds that you needed to kind of like to do the to build out the fundamental infrastructure, right? So I want to kind of like, take the conversation up to the next question. How well are we currently financing? No, a better way to say it is, how well are current financing mechanisms aligned, right, with the goals of transforming our food systems? We talk about the need to grow more food. So we say we want to grow more food because back to the fundamentals of supply and demand, wherever it is that we are growing more food, we're gonna have, cheaper food. So we're gonna have more access to affordable, accessible, nutritious food, right? And so we want to play that economies of scale in terms of like ramp up production as far as like the quantity. In Nigeria alone, we have 230 million people according to the recent statistics, right? Global population is kind of like chiming up 8 billion, if my stats are still as current as the most recent census. But think about it this way: wherever there is scarcity, and that scarcity caused by reduction in production or frictions along value chains in between production, storage, distribution, and delivery, right? There's always that bit which the impact is almost immediately felt in terms of like quantities of food that are available and therefore the prices of food. Back to the fundamentals of supply and demand, right? So my next question is now around the mechanisms, right, within our agri-food systems. What current funding mechanisms are aligned with our goal for transforming food systems? Choma touched a bit on this, but I want to bring this back to Dara, right, from the point of view of somebody who's currently raising, allocating, and deploying capital. Where are you finding those mismatches within our food systems, right?
That's a very good question. First of all, I do think that the food system entrepreneurs, farmers need to be they need to be louder. And the reason I'm saying this is because when businesses are not vocal enough to talk about the type of financing that they need, then
Right.
you just keep getting terms that don't work for you. And that's what I have seen, that many businesses are so used to what they can get, which is traditional, and they just tell you, let me know your terms. I'll try to make you work. And it's always the other way around to say, no, let me know your own terms and let us see whether it will work for me as a financier. And I feel that's the way to look at, financing, generally. But what I think has worked, and that's something that I believe so much in, is actually the idea of non-interest banking. I kind of feel is underrated.
Right.
Many people don't know so much about it. But that mechanism, there's a lot of like ethics to learn from it. And it's the ethics of really understanding where the revenue is coming from any business venture. And it has worked across different industries and across so many other places. But I do know that yes, a lot of education to make financiers to understand how that would work. But sometimes maybe in simple terms, I like to maybe go back to what Lucy's point on, on scaling family and friends kind of financing, because most of the times that's how it works. It's almost, it may be non-interest, it may be profit sharing, it may be joint venture, but that's how it's structured. It's more like, I'm coming into this partnership with you and I want to see you succeed. And if you're not going to succeed, or if you would face challenges, then I need to be in the know so that I also, know what my end goal will be, or how we can mitigate those challenges upfront. And I think that is what has worked, and that's what can work, is that you help a business anticipate where they can lose money and try to help them mitigate the risk, either by finding alternative sources of guarantees, or risk sharing mechanisms that can help them de-risk the transaction, and also finding capital that works in that sense. So for me, this is one that I so much believe in. It's called different things in different places and has different types of names. Sometimes you hear revenue-based financing, you hear non-interest, you hear some other ways, but it's very tailored to a business operation, and I feel that should be scaled. I feel it's, at this point, I don't know whether to call it an innovation, but I feel it should scale. And recently I was listening to an event where someone was talking about maybe the Sukuk bond that worked in Nigeria, and actually said that's like one of the most successful structure that has worked, even though it was for infrastructure. So I'm like, I feel that is a financing mechanism that really needs to be looked into and studied properly. I'm sure most of us that maybe have worked in northern Nigeria will see how this mechanism works. But I think it's something that can be scaled. Like, you need to care about the business that you're financing and not just look at it from an arm's length and just care about if they can provide a collateral in Abuja or Lagos. You need to care that they actually can use this capital to work for their businesses. That's how I think about it.
Brilliant. Shoma, Dara, thank you very much for that. Right. So again, we're back to, I keep hearing that between native solutions for native challenges within, financing. To back to saying this is what this business actually needs. So as a financier, you're actually a partner in success for that particular agri-food business. Because again, remember, we're thinking about good food outcomes. So it's not just we want to provide financing. We're saying this is the financing that we are providing, but then it's tied to very specific defined outcomes, right? And those outcomes will look everything from want to have more nutritious foods. And so that will mean we're being very intentional about what kinds of seeds are being planted, right? Is this fully integrated organic? Is it inorganic? Is it semi-organic? And just having this having clarity around that. There are a couple of things I want to touch on, and I'm very, very conscious of the fact that we only have 1 hour on, World Food Day Forum today, this year. And so I want to bring it down to Emeka. Emeka directly works in providing, he's the founder of Kwaima, the coalition of young Africans in, in agriculture. I think I modded that, and so you're going to help me with, the exact, right, the exact meaning of, what Kwaima spells out. But then Emeka does a lot of work in directly providing, inputs, so primary inputs, which is something that I wanted. Like, you can't say in food systems, financing is not arbitrary. It's financing is always tied to something, right? It's not, oh, I'm just going to give you money to to go buy a Benz or to do something else. I don't even know why that came to my mind, but yeah, that kind of like paints the picture. But then financing is always tied to very, very, specific things, with very intentional outcomes in mind. So whether it's primary production, we want to be very, very intentional around what kinds of seeds are being planted. Something happened in our ginger value chain locally, and we're still recovering from that, right? And so, Emeka, I want to tie that down to the farmers you've worked with around and providing kind of like, those inputs, primary inputs, whether those are cucumber seeds or the different kinds of seeds. What kind of finance like mechanisms have you seen work for those farmers? I love them as smallholder, I know, which is what I love about the work that you do, and the range of people you have within the coalition, right? And so just maybe a bit of an introduction, tell us more about Hoima, and then just narrow it down to what kinds of finance, what kind of solutions you've seen around financing for smallholder farmers, in primarily around the inputs space.
Right. Yeah, good day, everyone. Confirm you can hear me, please.
Yes, I can hear you very clearly.
All right. My name is Emeka Christian, and as Mr. Damien rightly said, I lead the Coalition of African Youth. Okay. So I lead the Coalition of African Youth in Modern Agriculture. It's good to see my sister Chioma again. We were together in Senegal just last September. So I lead the Coalition of African Youth in Modern Agriculture, and one of the things we want to do is to get more young persons to join the agricultural industry, regardless of their academic background, their professional background, to just find their own niche in the space and tap into it. So basically, that's what we do around university students studying agricultural sciences and other courses in the university, and some of them who are out of school. But bringing it down to the question you asked about what kind of funding or financing works for smallholder farmers, especially those I serve in this part of the world, I've come to realize that the most common among them is cooperative financing, where a group of smallholder farmers come together, pool resources together, and are able to source for inputs and the rest of it. Something happened recently. A particular brand of tomatoes became very scarce in Nigeria. So some farmers were now like, oh, how do we get this? But 50 grams of that particular brand of seed was selling for about 150,000 naira at the time. And the farmers were so concerned. The fact that it was expensive wasn't even their only problem. The other problem was that they can't even source this seed. So a group of farmers came together and pooled their resources together as a cooperative, and were able to acquire that particular brand. At the end of the day, they became the market kings, such that they were the only group of persons who had sought products in the market, and those were sought after variety of tomatoes. So that's it for cooperative funding, where these guys put their money together. Then another sort of fund I've seen that works is maybe I should just call it blended financing, where there are several sources. Because when I came on board, I heard you referring to what Chama has said about other funding sources like family finance and all of that. So I've also seen some of those local financing methods. Now I call it local because there's a limit, there's a range, or there's a scale you can't get to resource funding, methods. So cooperatives or farmers who have who have assets below 5 million in all, their farmland put together is not up to that amount. So their farm investments, you could find out that their farm is not even worth up to 1 million naira. In other words, the inputs that they're gonna get for those farms, the amount of money they need to make such investment is not so much. So even at the end of the day, when they put money together, the money doesn't really amount to much. And that goes to say that there's a limit they can't get to with that whole source of financing. And as Flying Farmer would always say, we should stop celebrating smallholder farmer, because there's nothing to be proud about in being small, And this is what keeps most of our farmers, small as per smallholder farmers. Their funding sources, going by the simply cooperative financing of their projects and all. Then the other sources are not very common. For example, bankers find farmers to be expensive, risky to part their monies with. They feel that, these farmers, you can't put your money in them. So the only reliable source of funding I've seen thus far by my engagement with farmers is just this whole thing around cooperatively pulling money together to maybe acquire input and all. I believe that there are some others that can be explored, just as we have mentioned, but those are not yet mainstreamed yet. The one that they are very comfortable with, they are very knowledgeable about, is this whole thing about pulling resources together and acquiring inputs. Yeah.
Thank you, Emeka. So you actually just pulled out what my next question was around de-risking agricultural investments or financial investments in our agri-food systems, particularly to lower income, you know, individuals, or just think about them as we would like to say smallholder farmers, which is industry lingua. So smallholder farmers in Nigeria alone, about 38 million, right? That's what the statistics say. We have 38 million smallholder farmers. They are practically the backbone of our food systems, right? If you were to take out is like half of those guys, right, from production, the impact will be very, very, very intentionally felt. So I want to kind of like bring us into back to this bit with de-risking agricultural investments, right? How do we de-risk? It's like we're thinking about how do we build, tailor, deploy innovative finance that will appeal to institutional investors, retail investors, and other kinds of investors. Investments that are de-risked, right? So first things first, it has to be around. Okay, this investment is not this is not your typical high yield, right? So this is impact investing, but it's profitable. At least your money is going to be you're going to beat inflation with the kind of interest that comes to, right? There are those different things that we can deploy. I was recently at NICEL and we're talking about the work they do around de-risking agricultural investments. Apart from this kind of government you know, agencies whose core mandate is to de-risk agriculture, those kinds of risks that banks would face and other kinds of investors would face. What innovative methods can we come up with together? And this is an ongoing question for even way after the panel session. And I know that we are pressed for time. We have about 13 minutes left to stop time. But what kind of and this is still under the innovation segment. What kinds of innovative methods can we come up with, right, to de-risk this kinds of the kinds of investment that we want to raise? First things first, we're not kidding ourselves, right? If we're going to raise money that is going to finance the kind of good food outcomes that we require, one is going to be a lot of money, right? And two, it's going to have to be very, 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 very tailored. So native solutions to different specific value chains, right? And so within our experience, in Kigali last year, we presented a financing solution. And where one of the ways we're thinking about collateralization was we would create a system where each person serves as a collateral for the other. And then an added layer of security on top of that would be, like individual guarantors, spiritual leaders, community heads, and different things like that. These were different models that have been deployed in different parts of Africa and different parts of the world and have been found to work, right? That's just one way of de-risking it. It's like, so I bring everybody into a cooperative. So Damien, Dara, Lucy, Emeka, and Daniel are all members of the same, cooperative, right? So from that initial cooperative, because we want to access financing, Dara is going to be collateral for Damien. Damien is collateral for Lucy. Same way, we're all collateralizing each other. Now, the way Damien knows that if he defaults, it means Dara needs to pay. And if Dara defaults, Damien is going to pay. And so everybody talks to themselves and says, come, guys, you cannot default because I'm not going to be at the brunt for you. But then on top of that, there's an added layer, right? Which is you bring a family member who's actually good for the money. And so to be responsible for payments for that, if you were to default. And then added to that, we say, okay, we want to make sure that you're sound. So give us a spiritual leader that has the ability to actually cover the funds, but more so can actually vouch for you to say, look, we trust and know that this person is of good character, they're going to deliver on the fund. Does that immediately play out, or does the end result of that immediately is the immediate end result 100% return on funds? We don't know yet because we've not fully deployed that system, right? But just give that an example to say what kinds of innovation can we find. Hi, Jerry Toby, welcome to the call. Just for Jerry on board, he's been in the studio for a while. So what kinds of innovative financing models can we actually come up with that will be appealing to individual, retail, institutional, bilateral investors, right? So that we can actually bring in the kind of scale we require. into our agri-food systems. On this one, I'm going to start out with Lucy. Just hear your thoughts on this, what you think. Again, this is a developing, and we're developing the solutions together, right? That's one of the things we do on the World Food Day Forum. We're not just talking about problems, we're actually providing solutions to them. So just your thoughts, yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to financing, right, I think that access to finance is not really the problem we are dealing with. I also think that the type of financing is not our major problem. The problem we are facing in the agricultural sector when it comes to financing is not having enough data to back our financing. And data is one of the fastest way to de-risk any sector that has a lot of risk. So when imagine that every farmer we see can clearly show you data of their production record data, their financial record data, and you can use that data of a year or two seasons to project into what their future is. What then happens is
Right.
that whoever is trying to finance will only just say, you know what, give me your data. And it puts in this data into their system, and their system will tell them worst case scenario, this is what can happen. Best case scenario, this is what can
Mm,
happen. So this is if you are a high risk taker, if you want to take a lot of risk, then you can give this kind of money. If you want to be on a safe side, you can give this kind of money. But the question is, who is advocating for record keeping in the agricultural sector? Nobody. And one question I always tell farmers is, if you have money, would you fund yourself? When someone just comes to tell you, I
mm,
did two plots, and the two plots gave me 3 hectares. And the last time I did it, now gave me 4 hectares. And the other time I now did it, no, that's not information. I said, would you give that kind of person money? Because it means that what that person is telling you, the person is not sure. And you can finish giving the person money, and he's going to come back and tell you that, okay, this your own is like God is not in favor of you. That is why he's not doing 1 hectare.
mm,
We have digitized weather forecasts. We have brought a lot of awareness around quality of seedlings. We have brought a lot of awareness about quality of soil, but we have not brought a lot of awareness about the value of record keeping and how it is the fastest way to de-risk financing. There's no form of financing that will not thrive if there's data to back it up. So I think for every farmer seated here, every processor seated here, go and ask yourself, what are the critical data that affects the kind of results you bring out? Is it
mm,
the data around your soil quality per time, the quantity of fertilizer you put per time, if you're in livestock, how you feed, the duration of feed, how much you spend on feeding, so that you can yourself tell yourself that this is how much it takes to run a system. And worst case scenario, this is how much I have made. And if the situation becomes better, this is what can come out of it. So this is a call to everyone, right? The fastest way to de-risk financing is, let's embrace record keeping in the agricultural sector. Once there is no record, there is no proof. And once there is no proof, it's difficult for money to come out. So if we can begin to advocate for a lot of players in the food system to embrace record keeping, both production and financial record keeping, we are up to opening and de-risking the agricultural sector faster than we can ever imagine.
Chama, that is just beautiful, right? Because one of the things that finance loves is certainty, right? So allocators of finances around the world would like to tell, I mean, they're trying to predict certainty and they're trying to predict outcomes. And so I think that's one great way to kind of like de-risk it, right? We're pressed for time, and I know that there are amazing contributions from here. One of the things I would want us to do out of World Food Day Forum would be to harvest all of all these ideas into some form of a white paper. We are developing something for the finance space in quickly, and we are trying to work on something within the decentralized finance space, because then it allows us to pull finances from around the world and make them available. We also love to think about it from this perspective of the financing that is going to help us scale our agri-food systems has to be, even when it's interest based, at the most has to be single digits, right? Because then
Yeah.
it helps us to drive out those good food outcomes that we require, right? Jerry, thank you for joining us, right? I'm going to pivot that bit, and we're please, every one of us, I'm going to be reaching out to you personally. That bit with innovative ways to do it, agri-food financing, agri-business financing. All right. Jerry has a lot of relationship with government, and so I would want to just pen out that a question tailored for you around what the role of policy, right, in enabling, in creating an enabling environment for like for finance, for food system financing, right? So the question is, what's the role of policy? And think about policy as, like I described on the show recently, as a mode of action. Like, or just think about it as directive, right? So this is where we are going to, this is how we're going to do what we are going to do, this is what we want to achieve, right? That's the role of government. Maybe your just from your experience relating with government, what do you believe should be the role of government in penning out clarity around policy that would help galvanize the financing for our different systems?
Yeah, thank you very much. I believe you can hear me. Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, very clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Apologies, I'm able to join up as soon as possible. I want to say this quickly because today's World Food Day, and it's actually think hand in hand for a better future. I'm talking about government, the private sector, the donor partners, and everyone. And even the private sector here, the farmers, they are considered the private sector. One of the things I think to aid financing is to see how every end can do what they have to do. You know, Yoruba in my local language, I'm a Yoruba boy, and that's why you always sing Kasila. Yoruba will say Owo
I have
laughing for
somewhere here. I think I'm going to put it on soon.
yeah, Owo laughing for you can't make your hand clean. You know, when you wash your hand, you use your two hands to wash your hand. If you wash your hands like this alone, the hands don't become so clean like that. But when you use your two hands to wash your hands, actually best. So that's what I believe that hands in hand, wherever you are, let's join hands together. So on the government end, what to me I believe is to say that government number one of the primary responsibility of the government is to create an enabling environment. I'll give you a quick example because of time. Buhari time, there was actually something called the APD, that's the Anchor Bra program. They created an enabling environment by creating the policy by stopping rice production. And I can tell you today, Nigerian demand for rice was almost 7 million tons. And we're not even producing up to 1 million tons or even up to 1 million. So post Buhari call ban for rice import and everything, capacity, facilities, processing, value addition in the rice value chain increase, even to the natural guys in the rural area creating their own small mill and everything. So it's created for more jobs within the system. Government creating an enabling environment will create for job, will create for financing. I can tell you, it is very easy for a bank to finance what they know that the government is actually in support of. So like now, the shea butter now, bank guys have been asking, what are you doing within the shea butter value chain? Are you doing something around it? Can you do something around it? Because one, they know that the government has actually placed something that's going to actually create value for them in the short term. When the government is going to open it in the next 3, 4 months or 5 months, I can tell you that if they invest their money, say the bank, they want to invest their 1 million, their 10 million, their 100 million, so someone that is actually, they can actually get their money back. So it's actually something that we should understand that government is actually an enabling environment. I had the privilege of meeting the minister. The first time I had a sit-down conversation with him, we had one-on-one conversation. And I was like, oh, this and that, I'm running a business, I'm doing this. And he gave a statement. He said, Jerry, the business of government is not dashing out money. It's about me helping you. That every ecosystem from your tax to things around that will help your business get strengthened. My business is not to give you money. I want to make it strengthened that you can go and ask people for money and you will get money. And I can tell you, yes, I've been given privilege by the state government, by different state governments to actually run something because of that creating enabling environment. And I say this, please don't always point, don't let us always point fingers to our government, like, oh, they are not doing anything. they are actually working out something. It's just around how we can actually function ourselves to understand what they are doing. I took it on myself as a person that, oh, as a stakeholder in this business, I need to know as a businessman, I need to know what the government is doing. Visit their office. What are you doing within this space? Bank of Agri, where that you receive money, where are you focusing your money on? These guys, NADS, we are doing something around this, around ginger value chain. What are you doing? What can I plug into this? Oh, I had you release some money. Oh, when is the next batch coming? I didn't get from the next batch. When is the next batch coming? So financing is not really a business of government. What government can do, and let me say it clearly here, there's actually something called the Bank of Industry. And the Bank of Industry released a intervention fund so that they can actually help in ensuring that businesses can get some small loans to actually recover and get resilience to at least to revise their processing and everything. Government also now say, okay, beyond that one, I want to give waiver before I will always collect money from people that want to import rice or import something into the country. I'm giving you waiver. If you're importing agricultural machine and then you paying 20% import duty, can you pay just 2% import duty? So these are the things government actually do and say, okay, and I think if they talk to the government is going to listen to this. Is to say that young people are actually very interested in doing business in agriculture. This is what I said, business in agriculture. And we want to actually ensure that we want to be actually be riding the same cars. Yes, we want to be riding the same cars with the musicians. We want to be riding the same cars with the technician, the tech guys. And we want to be also be able to build the same house with people working in the oil industry. So when you as a government, remember that you need to create enabling policies that makes this agriculture a sweet business for anyone that wants to come into it. Thank you much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jerry. I appreciate you. Right, we're gonna have to wrap it up now. As much as there's so much in my mind, right, and there's so much that I would love for us to touch on, right. But then we've had Dara have to go. Big thank you to Dara Adekunle. She was joining us from the west of the world, and it's absolutely different time, time space, the time frame rather. Um, and just want to say a big thank you to her. I know that Shama is also has another engagement she needs to be at. She needs to speak at. So Chama has also had to leave. So thank you so much, Chama and Dara. We truly appreciate the time you've given. As we're wrapping it up, right? Just for Emeka, Daniel, and Jerry, two key things as we wrap up. Like just looking ahead, right? What would you say first would be what are the bold actions we need to take over the next 5 to 10 years to truly finance agri-food system transformation? And then remember, when we say agri-food system transformation, we're thinking good food outcomes, right? Because that's the whole point of the conversation. That would be the first question. And of course, following up on that would be, if you could change one thing about how we currently finance food systems, what would it be and why? So we'll take it one after the other as we wrap up. So, what bold actions do we need to take over the next 5 to 10 years? In a few minutes, I would go with you first, Daniel. If you can hear me, please. Bold actions. You think just a couple of bold actions you think we need to take over the next 5, 10 years. To kind of like get the kind of good food outcomes we require to have. We want to have.
Thank you, Damien. It is a great pleasure to be here. I can also see my friend Emeka here. Some bold actions that we really need to take. One of them is having productive food systems. For example, having systems that work beyond the traditional models, e.g., in the aquaculture space where we thrive at Orisha Farms. Over the past 3 to 4 years, we've been championing the integration and the use of cage culture system, which is a system that naturally uses the water body for optimal fish production. This system has been shown to work, and this system has been shown in the aquaculture space to reduce almost 40% of the cost used to produce fish. So you don't need to worry about energy and stuff like that. So we have this kinds of system that exists among various agriculture space in the poultry sector, in the crop sector, their irrigation system, solar system, there ensures like continuous irrigation, even in dry season. So this functional and this proven system, we need to channel finances towards them. And these are the things that over the next 10 to 5 years, if if we're able to take up the mantle from those that have come before us and decide to run with this baton, we need to create systems that work, and then also not only having systems that work, need to have those in the financial space, those that have access to finances, the VCs, the banks, the grant institutions, to finance these models that work. And I believe that if we do that in the next 5 to 10 years, we will see an exponential growth in the potential of the Nigerian agriculture space. And
Thank you.
this will lead to food system.
Awesome. Thank you. I have a follow-up question for you. I remember from our own personal private conversations that we're talking about what specific needs Orisha farms had for growth and expansion. And that's one of the key things, key stories we even tell. For everything we're building out in DeFi, we propose it to build out in DeFi. These are Orisha farms are one of the key farms that we're thinking about, right? So if I remember correctly, the statistics around, and I remember we're talking about 5 to 10 years bold actions, right? The statistics about what the demand for just tilapia fish locally is. We talked about that, privately, and you were saying, like Orisha Farms is not even they are scratching
Not
like
doing
the
enough.
abilities, right, within those value chains. And I remember, if I remember correctly, what we're talking about then was if we're to deploy, say, 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion to richer funds right now, there are already mechanisms, there are already channels that money is going to flow into to expand production. And even then, you will still not yet be scratching what the surface in terms of like what the possibilities of what the market is and the market demand is right now. So I just want to talk about that in terms of like numbers, right, around what those numbers are. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, just very quickly, in the Nigerian aquaculture space, we demand about 3.2 million tons of fish every year, and out of that, we are able to produce less than 1 million ton of fish. The value of that one that we're not able to produce is more than 8 9 billion dollars. But if we let's localize the number, let's bring it in more terms that we can break down. 1 ton, to produce 1 ton of fish is about roughly 3.7 to 4 million naira. That means to produce just 100 ton of fish, we're looking at 400 million naira, and 1,000 ton of fish, we're looking at over 1 billion naira thereabout, over 4 billion naira thereabout for just 1,000 ton of fish. In Lagos, where we are based, Lagos demands 440,000 ton of fish every year. So if somebody gives us our cluster, let's say 4 billion to produce 1,000 ton of fish, is a lot. The number is a lot, but we are not even scratching
Up to
0.01% of
1
of
of Lagos
Lagos, of
demand.
Lagos, not even talk less of the whole Nigeria. But what we've done is that we have a system that works, and we are going to tell you that this system works. It's going to reduce the typical cost of production. If cost of production costs 10 naira, our system does it for 50 to 60 naira. So we have a system that works, a system that is scalable, and we have the natural resources that support the system. So the right financing to us, let's say grant would be well, or equity investment, but a loan would not do very well. So those are the things that we know, understand that these are the type of capital that we need. And even if somebody is coming with a 4 billion naira equity investment, it's going to improve our production capacity from 100 tons as it is now to, let's say, 1,000 tons. But we are not yet even scratching the possibility of our local environment, our local state, much less of the country. So these are important discussions to have, and these are important data to be aware of, so that once we have institutions, World Fish, UK Aid, that are able to have these finances, we know where to channel this finance system. Thank
Amazing.
you.
Thank you so much. Right. I wanted to provide context to something that you said. You were giving an example. For example, if the traditional cost is 10 naira, with the system you have in place, it costs you 5, 6 naira to kind of do that production. Right. Just wanted to make sure that I provided clarity to that. And thank you very much. That's something I'm personally very invested in. Personally, to see that we raise the financing for that cluster and more than that cluster. Like I said, we need every time that we're able to do scale, we're able to reduce the overall cost of food. And again, remember, we're thinking about financing good food outcomes. So I'm going to throw this in question to you, Emeka, and to you, Jerry. But Emeka first, 5 to 10 years, bold steps that will transform our agri-food systems.
Sorry, I'll let Jerry go first. I think he want to go first. I see that. Please go ahead, Jerry. I'll let him go, please. Mr. Daniel, you
Okay,
can. I mean,
that.
okay.
Okay, if you want to go
Yeah.
last, if you want to go last, that's fine. Thank you very much, Jerry. Yes.
Emeka, thank you
I
very
think we
much.
also you nodding very, very enthusiastically. So we know you have a lot to say. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I want to say this.
Sorry, sir. Please, you can also narrow that down to jet farms. The work you do, so that it's practical for the people who are, listening to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the next 5 to 10 years, what I'm saying for what we're doing. So just to put clarity on what we do. Jet farms Nago Solution is a youth-led business, women-centered, working from production to processing to exportation, and creating jobs for young people within the value chain system, and also including technology. So we have different aspects of Jet Farm, which is the demo food and spice. We have the farm to city, and we have the farmer support project. Yeah, so basically,
Mhm.
just to say this, especially for what we do at the more food and spice, we believe that if financing is actually going to be structured for businesses such as what we do, um, I saw you like what Daniel said. Um, it's big. The market is big, like so big, and it's so interesting to see that let me tell you who we compete against. We actually compete against the people of Bank of India, Bank of America, Bank of Malaysia, Bank of China. They actually invest into their guys, give their guys funds to come to Africa to come and do stuff and give them at a very low digit rate. I can tell you, so I don't want to mention names here, but most of the big brands you see within the spices value chain that are foreign owned, they come with their foreign money, they come with their foreign funds, come with their billions of dollars, billions of yens, and come to Nigeria and come and do anything innovatively. They can try a product and say, oh, this product did not work, I will try this other product. Because they have the money. But people like us that we are using our money to do the trial, and if we fail, we get our legs broken and we work people, you don't want to accept or say, oh, can't you see this other product? Not knowing that those guys in that system actually have created a system for them that go and try in Africa, go and fail, let us see, even
Yeah.
though you fail, we will still support you. So it's a
So
challenge to our
financing a lot of iterations, right? That allows for iterations within it.
exactly. So financing should actually be well structured. I'm currently in a program that actually we're actually structuring financing products with banks and the rest. So one of the things I want to just say before I go because I have to run now
No problem.
is that investors out there, please, this is Nigeria is not Silicon Valley. It is Lagos. It is Ojuelegba. So it is Ojuelegba in the sense that it is not Silicon Valley, it is Yaba-led. It is Yaba. With it is Yaba. Design product for Yaba. Don't bring Silicon Valley of California to
Yes, sir.
Yaba in Lagos. So
Native solution, native needs.
let, let
Yes.
us design products that we young guys can think of as, oh, I have this idea. Can you support me towards it? And give him a 10, 15 million naira. Go and try it. Oh, take this 15 million naira. Go and try it. And let us see the rubbish you come out from. Because that's what they even did in Silicon Valley, that they are doing great stuff today. So if you're out there and you're willing to invest into the system, please create products that are all right. I want to use the right English now. That are done with hand in hand. I'm looking for the right Yoruba that is in my head now. Kashiparako. I don't know the English of it. So let's come
Let's
together.
do this together.
Exactly. Don't form a
Let's join
product in your office.
together.
Don't form a product or financing product for agri. Don't form a product with us. Let us sit there and tell you what it
I
looks
need to
like.
wear my Yoruba cap.
Yes, you need to, because you need to come together to form financial products for the agri system. Because I can tell you, if we miss it this time again for the next 5 years, the number of people that will get hungry will increase more than 400 million. No? So for my guys out there, today's World Food Day, please don't forget also, you out there, investing in our finance system means you are supporting and buying food from us. So buy food
Right.
from us. Quickly is there, our product is there. Ensure you buy our product from Quickly. The more food and spices on Quickly. Go and support the Nigerian rice. That is what I'm preaching today. You can see my back there, like World Food Day, it's Nigerian rice. I have to get go because I'm running for another meeting at 3 o'clock. And I'll say thank you very much for this opportunity. Christian, it's great to meet you online. We'll meet physically very soon.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to have you, Jerry. Thank you so much for the time. And we know you're in between another event. We're grateful for the time that you've given. Thank you so much. And thank you for the shout out quickly also. We appreciate you, sir. All right. So Christian, and then there was you, right? So again, I'm just going to tie for you. I'm going to tie, those two together. One, bold steps, bold actions, 5 to 10 years, and then of course, if there's one thing that you could immediately from the work you do on the ground, if there's something you could change about how we currently finance our agri-food systems, what would that be and why? Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome stuff. I think everybody who have spoken before me have made a lot of very important points, and I only want to add to what they have said. This year's theme around hand in hand for a better, for better food and a better future. That for me speaks to system approach in solving the system. Food insecurity problems we have in Africa and in the world. And that brings me to say that the action I want that we take there is this whole thing around, system approach, where everybody comes in to see the connectedness of their work in achieving food security. And that's what I always preach, that nobody is exempted from from the food system. I was in the ministerial roundtable this year during the African Food System Forum in Senegal, and I had the opportunity to hear reports from different nations around Africa as to how they are faring in keeping with the ADA, which is the Comprehensive African Agricultural Development Program, where they were saying that there was a lot of numbers there, a lot of numbers around population, about investment, about money flowing in the system and all of that. And one thing, what came to my mind was, who is going to do this? Because there's a saying that goes, where there is no vision, the people perish. So what happens where there is a vision and there are no people? And that's likely what we are facing in the agri-food system globally as we speak, because there's a lot of disinterest, as it has to do with agriculture and food security. But we are hoping that that's going to change very soon in the next 5 years. So to actually ensure transform food system globally, there has to be an actual hand in hand, an actual holding of hands of different sectors to ensure that everybody adds to this, to making this a reality, because nobody can thrive without food. If there's any sector that needs the highest attention, it is our food system. And this speaks to young persons, bringing young persons into the pool. How do we get the large youth populace in Nigeria and in Africa to see their responsibilities in actualizing a food secure, global food system, a food secure world? It has to begin with capacity building. It has to begin with information. In fact, there's something I said on this call, but we're still working on it. How we're going to get young persons to see every young person to be exposed to the issues on ground as it has to do with food security globally. Then the next thing that follows after that, as we have in this conversation today, is financing dreams. There are many young persons whose dreams or who have big ideas around tech, around supply chain in the agri-food system, but who are still limited by financing, by capital. So I just want to put this out there for financiers, international development partners, that please next time you give this capital, please let it be patient capital. You shouldn't hurry to see fruits, come forth from the capital you just invested in, startups today. Because as far as I'm concerned, in the agri-food system, every other thing grows like crops. Crops, you don't have hurry crops to grow and start bearing fruit. You give them time. So, in as much as we're going to bring youth, mainstream youth in the food system to find their place around, agri health, agri finance, agri insurance, agri tech, whatever. There is the place of capacity building. There's also the place of financing them, and of course, giving them that agency to bring to life whatever ideas they may have. And for me, one action I would take if I have the opportunity. Of course, I'm taking the actions in micro steps. Currently, with the work we do at Coalition, is to get every young person out there in the world to see the challenges around food insecurity in the world. It's a challenge. But just as Toby said, if we don't act now, more persons will be hungry in the next 50 years. Because right now we're working with that scope of the world might get to 10 billion, so 2 billion by 2050. You'll be shocked. With the way things are going in Africa, it might explode. And if we're not prepared for 10 billion, how much more will it then be if we have a global population explosion of up to 15 billion people to feed? So my own role and my own action I'm taking is to get many young persons to see the problems in the sector. And of course, in seeing the problems comes with seeing the opportunities. So that way young persons get to create these solutions that will solve these problems while trapping the opportunities that comes from there. And it also has to come around empowering young persons. And of course, we have a lot of programs rolled out between 2025 and 2026, thanks to the African Food System Summit I attended. My horizon core open because I saw a world of possibilities, things that are possible to get many young persons, particularly from Nigeria, into the ecosystem, so that we can drive this change from Nigeria to the rest of Africa, from Africa to the rest of the world. And then it goes back again to finance, because we have several projects we are running that require heavy finance. And we are sure that if we're able to carry out those projects, that there's going to be significant positive difference in our Nigerian and African food system. So that goes to say to everybody, policymakers, government, financial partners, whoever you are in the ecosystem, please, there is work to do in that young persons need to be brought into the system. So whatever you can do in form of policy, advocacy, in form of financing, in form of mentorship, in form of training, please do not withhold it from these young people, because the food transformation we do globally and in Africa have to be led by young persons, because once it is led by young persons, we are sure that it's going to be sustainable. So we are sure to have a sustainable food system with young persons leading that charge. And thank you so much for having me on this call today.
Thank you, Emeka. That was elaborate, and I absolutely loved it. So there's something we worked on in QuickLeap, and it's going to be released in a couple of days. We are revamping and kind of like re-strategizing, changing the focus, and we are taking the collaborative approach to create good food and good food outcomes with food system actors, right? But then more than that, we are actually now changing the model and changing the way we've gone about it. And so we're inviting people on this call, and we're going to be doing it more online, to join the food creators economy. And so there's now what we call the food creators economy, which is a community of food system actors who can access inputs, access finance, access markets, to kind of like create good food outcomes, to create good food. Everyone from farmers to traders to food processors, importers, exporters, procurement managers. And of course, our food systems are not complete without the markets, right? And under the other end of that is the community demand-driven system for individuals and families that will tie all of the food that's been created directly to markets, and of course tie the demand from the markets directly to the producers of food, right? So be on the lookout for the food creators economy. We are kind of like just refocusing and repurposing Collaborator, the platform, to be the food creators economy, the community for the food creators, and we're going to be talking about that a lot more. You see that across all our social media handles, paid and unpaid media. We're just going to be very, very loud about it, and to get more people into our food creators economy, because we really need to be intentional about the food outcomes that we want to have out of our food systems. Again, back to fundamental supply and demand. More food production, reduced overall, reduced costs right, of food, given that all the other adjacent constituents for energy, other costs are actually in their right place, right? Like I said, the conversation doesn't end here. We're going to create a white paper out of this, maybe a policy advisory document that would put together all of the different things that we've said on the World Food Day Forum today, and also and present it to different people who are interested in having it, right? Like I mentioned earlier on, we're also working on all those. We're working on something in the decentralized finance space for to kind of like galvanize the kind of funding that's required for our agri-food systems. The future is bright, the future is beautiful, the future is young, it is old, it is everybody in between, because we need every hand on deck for bigger than food security, food sovereignty, as a nation, as a continent, and of course as for the whole world, right? So I want to say a very big thank you to every one of our panelists. There's so much more I would want for us to talk about, but we're 26 minutes over time. And I would love for us to kind of like, be intentional about time. We promise people 1 hour, 1 hour has to be 1 hour. It's been 1 hour, 26 minutes of amazing conversations from remarkable panelists who are doing great things within the space. So thank you very much, Emeka Christian. Thank you very much, Daniel Chukuma. Thank you, Dara Adekunle. Thank you, Jerry Toby. Big thank you to Sandra, who wasn't able to make it. Femi, who had another engagement clash with this and had to be somewhere else. Very, very big thank you to all the panelists who have been a part of this conversation. We appreciate you, your time, and the thoughts and the insights that you've provided on financing agri-food systems for good food outcomes. The next time we're going to be having World Food Day Forum is going to be, of course, October 16th, 2026. And so we look forward to seeing you then. But in the meantime, there are a lot of exciting things that we're going to be releasing. There are things we're supposed to talk about on the conversation today, but that we couldn't. And so thank you, very, very thankful for everyone who registered. We have your phone numbers, we have your emails, we'll be sending you emails, and of course, communicates on all the different things that are available for you, everything from financing to market access to opportunities to showcase the innovations you have within our food systems. Again, thank you very much. I have been your host and speaker and panelist on the World Food Forum today. And yes, we are at a close. Thank you so much again to our panelists for staying to the end. Daniel, I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And also, thank you. All right, guys. We're continuing this conversation because there's so much. First, the data from Orisha Farms, we want to take that and present that more broadly. We want to take a lot of the things that Kwayema is doing and also present that more broadly within the wide spectrum of the food creators economy that we are building up. And yes, again, on the final note, thank you very much, everyone. And we'll be talking behind the camera and of course providing the solutions that would drive our food systems and the kind of food outcomes we want to